In the late 1990s, in a quiet farming town in South Australia, something unimaginable was hidden inside a locked bank vault. Snowtown had fewer than 500 residents. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone. But behind closed doors, a group of men were committing what would become one of the most disturbing series of murders in Australian history. This is the story of the Snowtown Murders. Snowtown sits about 145 kilometers north of Adelaide in South Australia. It was struggling economically. High unemployment, social isolation, limited police presence. But here's the first twist. Most of the murders didn't even happen in Snowtown. They happened in suburban Adelaide. Snowtown only became infamous because of where the bodies were found. John Bunting. At the center of it all was John Bunting. Charismatic, manipulative, controlling. Bunting developed extreme hatred towards certain groups, particularly convicted sex offenders. At first glance, some locals believed he was cleaning up the streets. But his motives were darker. What began as vigilante-style targeting soon evolved into something far more twisted. He began controlling those around him, isolating them, manipulating them, and recruiting accomplices. Among them, Robert Wagner, James Vlasakis, Mark Hayden. Together, they would form one of Australia's most notorious killing groups. Between 1992 and 1999, at least 12 people were murdered. The victims were often vulnerable, isolated individuals, some with criminal histories, others simply caught in Bunting's web of manipulation. Many were tortured before being killed. Their deaths were methodical, organized, calculated. Bunting would often assume control of the victims' finances, continuing to claim welfare payments after their deaths. It wasn't just murder, it was exploitation and control. The crimes remained hidden for years, because the victims were people society often overlooked. In 1999, police investigating a separate missing persons case were led to a disused bank in Snowtown. Inside the old vault were 6 large plastic barrels. What they found inside would shock the entire nation. The remains of 8 victims, stored in acid, hidden in plain sight. The quiet town instantly became synonymous with horror, but 4 more victims had been killed elsewhere. In total, 12 lives were taken. In 1999, arrests were made. The trial began in 2002. It became one of the longest and most complex murder trials in Australian history. In 2003, John Bunting was sentenced to 11 consecutive life sentences. Robert Wagner received life imprisonment. James Vlasakis was sentenced to life with a non-parole period. Mark Hayden received 25 years. Supreme Court of South Australia delivered the sentences that would ensure Bunting would never walk free. The Snowtown murders weren't random. They were the result of radicalized hatred group manipulation, social isolation, and a toxic leader controlling vulnerable followers. Experts later described it as a cult-like dynamic. Bunting didn't just kill, he recruited, he indoctrinated. He created an environment where violence became normalized. Today, Snowtown still exists, a quiet rural town, but its name remains permanently linked to one of Australia's darkest chapters. The Snowtown Murders forced Australians to confront uncomfortable truths about extremism, manipulation, and the vulnerability of the socially isolated. Sometimes the most horrifying crimes don't happen in dark alleys, they happen behind closed doors. If you found this story compelling, subscribe to Down Under Discoveries for more deep dives into Australia's most chilling true events. What case should we cover next?